Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Today, I couldn't be more excited to have our next guest. Truly a hero of mine. You guys, we all came to know him as one of our favorite VJs on MTV when he took second place to Jesse Camp, but he went on to be one of our favorite hosts and VJs on MTV. He is what I call a reliable narrator, a trusted voice in pop culture. He is an editor at large at Esquire, an author of the amazing memoir Party of One, a memoir in 21 songs. And he also created one of my favorite podcasts of 2021, Waiting for Impact. His new project feels like a coming home, where he takes us through the rise and sort of fall of MTV with the Odyssey original Who Killed the Video Star, the story of MTV, an 8-episode podcast that you can binge all episodes now. The one, the only, Dave Holmes.
Oh my God, Ryan, I couldn't possibly live up to that. Thank you.
Okay, well, have a good day, Dave.
Okay, yeah, bye. Thanks. I'm really honored. Thank you.
No, like everything that you do, like you're one of those people that I pay attention to everything because I get so excited when you have a new project. But this project in particular, when I first read about this, I was like, man, this is perfect. What was it that got you wanting to tell this story at this time? And you having this history, I mean, it just makes it even more special in some ways.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things that like when the Video Music Awards happen. I'm now in a time in my life when I don't know about it. You know what I mean? And I've been there
Yeah.
for a couple of years, and that always feels a little strange. And MTV has moved so far away from certainly from like music video programming, but also just from kind of music or youth culture in general, that this thing that I loved is now sort of a thing that I don't recognize. And a lot of people within 10, 15 years of my age feel the same way. So it's something that sort of it comes up in conversation. And also it's what has happened to MTV is also kind of what has happened to all of entertainment right now.
Yeah.
Television and movies and magazines and radio and all of these, all of the pillars of culture that we grew up with are crumbling around us. And it just felt like the story of MTV was a good lens to kind of examine all of that stuff through.
Yeah, it's almost like this story of like, we were once here. We were
Yeah.
here. And even in your last episode, you point out, which is wild, is that usually the kids will take over something. Like they'll take over, and that's where we start not recognizing things. But even in your last episode, you point out that like the demographic of MTV now is people in their 40s. It's not like the
Yes.
kids have taken over. It is
No.
almost made for people like us, yet it has fallen so far from where we started in 1981. And I just
Yeah.
found this story so interesting because you're right. It kind of tackles every piece of media and pop culture through the lens of this thing that was so special for us. You also chart the rise. And how did you break this series down? Because you started with the music, the takeoff, and then actually into remote control, the programming, the MTV news of it all. How did you break this down into 8 episodes?
Well, it was I kind of I thought about it as well. First of all, I had a really great team that I was working with. There's a writer in Michigan by the name of Jim Weber, who kind of just reached out via the way that I tell the story is that it's over LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure that's actually what
Well,
happened.
finally,
Yeah,
LinkedIn does something.
Oh, LinkedIn is great, by the way. That I might be showing my age that's my social media now. But yeah, he sort of came to me with like the idea of telling the story of MTV and trying to answer, how it has come to be what it is. And so the two of us together kind of sat down, and I wanted to do like an episode per what I consider to be the 8 eras of the channel,
Yeah.
And along the way, it was like the more that we got into it, there were a couple of things that we wanted to drill down further into, like the sort of the plight of the 90s reality star. So I kind of felt like, let's take a break and like talk to real world people just about their experience, because that is so separate from what we see now with
Yeah.
reality people. And also, while we were, putting this show together, MTV News was discontinued. So we're like, well, we should do a full episode about that. But it's, there are, to me, there are several specific eras of MTV, and so we wanted to do an episode per, and also like each of those specific eras is someone's favorite era. You
Yeah.
know, there are people who like only love MTV from 1981 to 1983. You know, and then there's like people like me who loved it from 84 to 89 or something. There's the Nirvana age people who like loved Kennedy and Duff and Steve Isaacs and whatever. There's TRL people, whatever. So it like Saturday Night Live, everybody's got their favorite era of MTV. So we wanted to do something so that everybody who had an era with MTV feels like, oh, okay, this is my
Yeah.
episode. You know?
Well, you just mentioned Saturday Night Live, and in a lot of ways, it's so interesting to talk about like the first year of SNL, the first year of MTV, Jays, when this didn't expect to explode the way it did. I mean, these
Mhm.
people were gods all of a sudden. You had these
Yes.
VJs that were like,
Yeah.
my God, I'm being recognized everywhere. I'm out
Yeah.
there, even so much so that when they actually have the first MTV Music Awards, they're kind of in the balconies doing like, cutaway shots, and like there's
Uh-huh.
like big actual music and actor presenters instead of the VJs, and they almost feel slighted, which I found fascinating.
Yeah. It's weird. That journey is such a strange one because for the first year and a half of MTV, it was it was always made in New York City, but for the first year or maybe even two, New York City didn't get cable. So nobody in like the five boroughs could see MTV. That's where these people lived. So they were like becoming famous kind of in pockets all around the country, but not in the place where they lived until, Manhattan got wired for cable, and then they were huge there too. So they were like stars that people at home felt were their friends. They were like these
Yeah.
relatable faces and voices, which was great. But once MTV kind of got big and wanted to establish itself and do like an awards show and whatever, it was like, well, you can't do that with like your friends can't host the show. You know what I mean? It's got to be somebody big. It's got to feel big.
Yeah, we're a
So yeah, so they
conglomerate.
got
At the end of the day, we're a business. At the end of the
we're a
day, yeah.
business. Yeah, even from the start. And so yeah, for that first Video Music Awards, this is so, and it's funny to think how revolutionary it felt at the time. But the hosts of the first VMAs were Bette Midler and Dan Aykroyd. Like that could not feel more like mainstream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, but at the time, it was like, what? Who? But yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, yeah, that's a fun
uh,
little moment in the early
there's
chapters.
And you guys listening, there's so many fun moments in this that I was even kind of blown away. And I think I'm kind of up on things. I even read the MTV book that interview the author.
Uh,
Like there's so many great moments that we all have. Like I remember as a kid, we didn't have it, but the Mulcahy's next door had it. And we would go over there and we would spend all our time there. And I remember just things like, I don't even know if they're fever dreams, but when they played 99 Luft Balloons and they played it
oh,
down from 99, 98, 97, like they played it 99 times in a row. Unless I'm just
oh
like imagining
wow.
this as a kid,
No,
it was in
that
like
feels like something they would do.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
it was felt like what I now know as like punk rock in a sense. Like Weird Al
Hmm.
was like busting around, all of these great
Al
memories.
TV.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It was so
You know,
great.
the funny thing about when I was there, and I think it was really the story of MTV always, was that it was a cable channel, and in the early days, really until like the last maybe 15 years, it wasn't expected that cable would get the kind of ratings that network would get. So there were kind of smaller margins. So like our ratings, like if we got like a million people watching, we were thrilled.
Yeah.
And a rerun of Reba on the CW or whatever gets a million viewers, and that's a disaster, right?
Yeah.
But like, so it was sort of there was a smaller margin for what separates like a hit from a flop. And so sometimes we were getting a million people watching and everyone was real cocky, so we would take chances. And sometimes it was like 600,000 people were watching, so it was like, whatever, ratings are kind of stinky right now, let's just do whatever we want. So it was just like there was this like culture of taking chances and taking risks and playing around.
Yeah, no, it does seem like they had a lot of playing around until we get to the era which we're in now, which the final
Yeah.
episode really delves into. And what you guys are going to also learn is like just kind of things that you might be curious about, like carriage stations and how like cable packages are packaged together. And even you
Hmm.
point out in this last episode, you recorded this, I think it was like May 3rd or the final voiceover. And in
Hmm.
that time, there's all this Viacom and Paramount shuffling around with who's in
Yeah.
head of like the station. So we don't really know where it's
No.
headed. But what you really broke down for me, and I made a post about this a couple years ago because I took MTV's schedule and really, like anybody, noticed that it is primarily Ridiculousness by Rob Dyrdek,
Yeah.
who you have a great interview with. But can you explain to people why Ridiculousness is what feels like 75% of MTV's programming now?
Well, sometimes it actually is 75% of
Yeah.
MTV's programming. Like, yeah, it was, yeah, at the time that I recorded that VO, it was going to air that week like 168 times, which is a lot. That's a lot of times.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
yeah, but it's the thing is, it makes sense for the network right now. MTV is still a valuable enough brand name that no cable systems want to drop it, really. So they get those. It gets bundled in with ESPN and Fox News and whatever else, and Home Shopping and whatever else people watch. And so MTV gets those carriage fees. They get like a chunk of your monthly cable bill if you still, are a cable subscriber. And then, they still can sell advertising. And so they just kind of put on what they know will get a reliable rating, right? And that
Yeah.
happens to be Ridiculousness, which is a show that, Rob Dyrdek, who is this, super motivated, super driven skateboard entrepreneur guy.
Oh, he blew me
Um,
away. You guys, the statistics. He
oh,
was like, listen, we
oh,
do
dude.
336 episodes a year. That's 4%
Yeah.
of my life. He goes, I don't
Yeah.
really think of it as my life. You have this great quote. And he goes, also, because we met him through Rob and Big, and he goes, I don't have to film this at my home anymore. I
Hmm.
can do, and it was
It
really mind
truly,
blowing
yeah,
as a
it
businessman.
exists. It exists so that because he was like, I have a vision for what my like skateboard and skateboard shoe company can be. And like, network or whatever, cable TV can like explode your visibility and your skateboards fly off the shelves. And so he, Robin Big was a reality show that he did with his bodyguard.
Yeah.
And that was, there were, camera guys in his house. And he was like, I don't want to do this. So he figured out a way to do like a hipper America's Funniest Home Videos with more videos, and those videos are things that people have already uploaded to YouTube, so they can just have
Cheap.
them
Yeah.
free, really. And so it's come back around to the era of free programming for MTV, because obviously the first couple of years of MTV were just music videos that MTV didn't have to pay for. But yeah, he's figured out a way to do like 8 episodes a day, 4 days a month, in by 9, out by 3. He just cranks them out, and they got an episode order for 7 more years, and it's upwards of 3,000 more new episodes. It's crazy.
Yeah. I
It's
mean, you
crazy,
started this interview
and
talking about
he's yeah. Anyway.
the MTV Music Awards, which you say I don't even know when it's on anymore. It always
Mhm.
shocks me as well when it comes to that part of the year, and I'll still kind of watch it in frustration and anger. But I also, my big question is, why do we even still have the MTV Video Awards when we don't
Uh-huh.
really show a lot of videos? Why do we still
Yeah.
have it?
I think it's just such a like crown jewel of the network. I think that would be the hardest thing for them to give up. And it is still a show that gets a pretty good rating. This last one, was up significantly from the years before. It is still a show that can generate like a what what we would now like a water cooler moment, to the degree that such things still can be said to exist. They can still happen on the Video Music Awards. A lot of big cultural moments in the last 10, 15 years did happen there. The Kanye thing with Taylor Swift,
Yeah,
and the what's good Miley and all that kind of thing. Like that's you can still,
move the
if
needle
a
in a sense.
yeah, if a big moment that's going to break through that everyone's going to know about can happen, there's a good chance it'll happen there. So yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of get why they still do it, but yeah, it does feel weird when it's like you look at the nominees for Video of the Year and you're like, okay, I haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
80% of these.
That's it. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
artists are still paying millions of dollars to make music videos. Where are they being played if not
Hmm.
MTV? But you also point out in this final episode, which I just thought was excellent, was that like you can find. I mean, there's MTV Classic. There's a thing
Yeah.
on Apple TV you found. Like if you really are
Hmm.
searching, it's out there. But I think it's
Yeah.
like MTV was that aggregator that we all went to that we
Yeah.
didn't want to have to go searching.
Exactly. It was a curator, you know, like
Yeah.
there was real like actual careful curation going on from the music department. And like, God, if we had more episodes, I would love to talk, to the music department about the evolution of, what they did decide to show and showcase in those early years and how that changed and all that. So I mean, yeah, it's a thing that we do at my house now. um, we'll get people over on like a Friday night. My boyfriend set up a projection area in our
Yeah.
backyard, and we'll create a collaborative YouTube playlist. And everyone gets to add a thing or two, and it evolves through the night. And it kind of, we didn't set out to replicate the feeling of sitting in a dorm room and watching MTV, but that's exactly what it feels like. It ends up being like music videos or old commercials or comedy sketches or whatever. And just the idea that we're doing it, and that it's not an algorithm serving it to us and whatever, like there are human minds guiding this thing that we're all doing, makes such a difference, you know.
Yeah. Well, I've romanticized MTV for so long. Like I romanticize a lot of pop culture, but in listening to this, it's just a reminder or a gentle reminder of how much it really is a business and how much a
Mhm.
business kind of directed how MTV went. In fact, in one of the earlier episodes, I found it so fascinating talking about album cycles, talking
Mhm.
about like the reason why MTV went into original programming is because sometimes the album cycles, there wasn't enough music. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. It was, you used to be able to, like, whatever. James Brown would do like 3 albums a year. The Beatles would do 3 albums a year. And then in the 70s, it kind of, albums entered their blockbuster era, Rumors and the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. And it was like, it made more sense for record labels to work the same record for 2, 3 years. Or yeah, a band to tour
Yeah.
behind it for 2 or 3 years. So like these early superstars that MTV was creating, like Michael Jackson and Madonna was reliably cranking out one a year, but like it was the music department was like, well, what if our superstars just for like a full year aren't actually doing anything? So they kind of always had to be looking forward and thinking, who the next big artist would be.
And that kind of led to like shows like Remote Control, uh,
Exactly.
things like that. Remote Control, people
Yeah.
forget. Colin, I love Colin Quinn was like the sexy guy on Remote Control at the time. Like I
Y-
remember as a kid going like,
Yeah.
"Wow, this guy's like the Fonzie or something like that." And then you had Adam
Wow. See, I was a
Sandler
Ken
on there.
Ober man myself, but yeah.
I mean, I
Uh,
was young. I was impressionable.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah, to be less at the mercy of record company, album cycles, the network did had to like create shows that were sort of music based, or that had like what they called the MTV attitude. And so that's what they did with Remote Control, and then Club MTV, and then Lip Service and things from there, House of Style, whatever. Yeah, they did kind of early on have to branch out into programming, which was controversial at the time because it was, the people who fell in love with MTV in the early years expected it to be just music videos, and nobody
Yeah.
likes change.
In terms of the research, is there something that you found? Because you're really up on all of this, but is there something you found in the research that you didn't know? Something that surprised you in the process of making this?
It's this comes up in the Rob Tannenbaum and Craig Marks "I Want My MTV" book, which is great. Um, but the genesis of the idea came from American Express just wanting to get younger people into credit cards. It was, they there was an underserved 18 to 24 demographic for credit cards, and American Express wanted in, and nobody was really advertising strictly to 18 to 24-year-olds. And so that was kind of the seed of the idea, was like, how do we reach these people? Because even Saturday Night Live, which had, the average viewer was 28 years old or something like that. It was like, okay, well, half of those viewers are over 28. So you're wasting, a lot of your money if you're looking for 18 to 24-year-olds by advertising on Saturday Night Live. So they needed kind of their own thing. And that's, you don't often think of like a credit card company, a massive, banking conglomerate doing something good for the culture, but it sort of accidentally did.
And it really it
Yeah.
did do something good for the culture. It
Yes.
cannot be undermined like how much like 120 minutes got me like involved
Yes.
in so many bands, like just even like growing up in Kansas, like learning who REM was, learning who Morrissey was, like all of these things. And they would hide 120 minutes like late at night, so you felt like you were
Hmm.
doing something illegal within the confines of even watching MTV, but it was so
Yes.
exciting. And that's the thing that I sometimes romanticize to the point where I get sad. Like you have these beautiful lines in this, and especially the last episode where you point out the Buggles, like, we can't rewind. We've gone so far, and I almost
Yeah.
broke down in tears listening to
Oh,
that. I
good.
was like, what a
Yes.
brilliant line! And you start the
Mission
series
accomplished.
with
Well, thanks.
a shot across the bow when they played the Buggles video "Killed the Radio Star" as the first video of,
Yeah.
and it was this really beautiful sandwich in the actual podcast. But I just don't know why sometimes as I get older, I'm feeling emptier with pop culture because I feel like we had it all at one point. Does that
Absolutely.
make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel exactly the same way. I mean, part of it is just the natural order of things. We are not young anymore. But also it is like we really are at a time in culture that um, where it is all about making wealthy people wealthier. It is only ever
Yeah.
like it's these things are owned by fewer and fewer massive conglomerates. They increasingly only exist to generate value for their shareholders. They only exist to not only make more and more profit, but to maximize the rate at which that profit gets bigger and bigger. And the only way to do that is to just cut costs, cut costs, cut costs. So it is the balance has shifted so far to making the shareholders happy, completely at the expense of creating a product that is satisfying or good, or thinking about your consumer in any way. Like we're at a stage now where literally, I mean, movie studios are making movies, completing the production on a movie, and then like some bean counter at the top is like, actually, we get a tax thing if we throw this movie in a trash can in Fresno and
Yes.
set it
Yeah.
on fire.
Warner
You know what I mean?
Brothers have
And
thrown
that
away multiple movies in the past couple
movies,
of years.
they're
Yes.
done, they're finished. Just put them out there. But it's like because of some tax thing, it's some guy with a yacht gets a fraction of a penny more, and that's all they give a shit about. And so like it has just swung so far in that direction that it's like, and the social media that was supposed to set us free is now so algorithmically driven that even it is unsatisfying. It's not giving you what you are interested in. It is giving you what will keep you dead-eyed and scrolling.
Yeah.
So it's just algorithmically driven stuff, and it's as this guy Matt Klinman, who's a brilliant writer and has thought extensively about these things, says it's all just becoming pig feed now. We're
Yeah.
just our mouths are at the
We're fully in the
trough.
matrix. We're in the matrix right
Yes,
now, and it
yes,
is hard to pull out of. Um, a lot of the other episodes, like you say, you zoom in on certain parts of MTV, and one, of course, is MTV News. MTV News
mhm,
truly is where I got a lot of my news, and you point out that like
yes.
it really did help swing the election in a lot of ways for Bill Clinton because Bill Clinton talked to young viewers on MTV.
Right. And champion things that young people at the time cared about. Reproductive freedom and climate change, and all of these things that were a little fringy at the time, but that young Gen X people did really care about. But they wouldn't really know that from watching regular news. He kind of had to bring all that stuff directly to the audience, which he did, and it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, MTV News really took young consumers of news seriously, which was
And
revolutionary.
Kurt Loder led that ship, and
Yeah.
I mean, he really was, and I remember exactly where I was, and when he announced that Kurt Loder had passed away, it was kind of
Kurt
Walter
Cobain.
Cronkite, sorry, Kurt
Yeah,
Cobain, Walter Cronkite talking about JFK. Like it was
for
this moment
sure.
where chills when I was in high school watching it, and he was this trusted name in news. I heard it
Yeah,
there first before anybody, but MTV
yeah.
News did so much, and there is this sadness when what year did they shut MTV News down?
This year, right? Last
Yeah,
year, maybe
yeah.
end of 23. Yeah, very recently.
Which is huge because you almost wish there was a Rob Dyrdek to actually like punch the numbers so they could make it profitable or find a way to keep those outlets going, especially as we enter this really insane election season that we're coming up
Exactly.
on. Because networks like this could be truly important for young people. But I guess we're
Yeah.
all in our 40s watching
Well,
watching MTV.
but also, you know what? News networks could cover news instead of,
Yeah,
instead of like all this horse race nonsense. They could actually, I mean, no viewer of any age is actually, if they watch cable news, nobody knows anything about the policies of any candidate. It's just about like whatever shocking thing happened that day.
yeah,
It's whatever they can
yeah,
put a breaking news chyron on. It's, they're doing the same stuff. They're just trying to like, they're just chasing eyeballs like anybody else, and like the
yeah.
important stuff is boring,
I was
or
just thinking.
whatever. Yeah.
I was thinking this week, I was like, how would MTV News cover the Kendrick Drake rap battle, like rap beef? How would they,
I
like, who
mean,
would Tabitha Soren be on this? Like, who
that's the
would Gideon
thing.
Yago?
Oh my God. All I want is Gideon Diego's take on this whole thing. But yeah, when significant stuff happens in music, you really do feel the loss of not only MTV News, but MTV as like a channel. In the last 5 years, as like, David Bowie and George Michael and Prince and Tina Turner and Tom Petty and all of these iconic people have passed. One does want a single place to go, and process
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Can you, and that, like the day that Taylor Hawkins died,
Oh, I know. Totally.
there's, you want there to be a place where it's like, it's live and people can call in and it's, here's the rest of the band and whatever, and that doesn't exist anymore. Everyone's kind of on their own in their own little,
Yeah.
little
Uh,
mini submarines for one,
I mean, truly. The other thing, you actually do this great interview, and one of your real talents, I think, and I thought this with Waiting for Impact, you did an interview with Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block, and I thought it was one of the most honest, really like amazing interviews in that. But you also do that with Eric Nice from Real World.
Eric
You have
Nice.
him, and you really like it's just so interesting to chart his journey because the initial first season of The Real World exploded in a way where that's what got me into reality television was that first season. And that
Yeah.
impacted my life in so many ways. But Eric's journey since then has been wild. Like he's a shaman in a lot of ways now.
No, he's like, I think officially, I don't know
He's
that
a,
you
well,
get
yeah, I mean,
a license to be a shaman, but I think he is like a licensed shaman. That is what he does. He's in Hawaii and he like, leads people on like frog venom psychedelic
yeah, yeah,
sessions or whatever.
ayahuasca and yeah, amazing.
Ayahuasca, yeah, exactly. And he seems very healthy, but his experience is so interesting to me because now, like I've got Jackson Brittany around the corner, not to brag, but I'm in Valley
Oh,
Village. So
wait,
like
are
the,
you in a
the
modern day
valley's happening all
farmhouse?
around.
Are you in a modern day
No,
farmhouse?
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
We're in a 1920s crumbling home. But they're literally like right there. We're in the nexus of that whole the valley show, which is crazy. But anyway, like all of those people like go in and they know how to monetize it. They know how to, not only like do the appearances and have the DJ at the parties and whatever, but they have their essential oil diffuser business ready to go, and they have their whatever. They have their t-shirt line and all that kind of stuff. Like if you show up on a Bravo show right now, you've got 8 different ways to get rich off it, right?
Yeah.
And also to like protect your image and play to the camera and know what part of your relationships to have off camera and all that kind of thing. Eric Nies didn't know any of that, right? None of the like the '90s, certainly the first season, but really kind of throughout the '90s, real world people showed up. They got paid, $1,000 for the whole season, and then were essentially kind of unemployable afterwards because they were so recognizable. So if they wanted to be an actor, they basically couldn't. There are maybe one or two exceptions. Poor Julie wanted to be a dancer in that first season,
Yeah.
and she went to a bunch of Broadway auditions, and they were like, they had just brought her in to ask her questions about the real world, and they were like, we can't put you in this show. Like, if people see you, they'll get pulled out of the production because you're so whatever. So it's like, and they were, even if the editing was good, it's like, okay, people think I'm this person that I'm really not. It's just, this is the story the editor's told. And I'm crazy famous and not super rich. And so, and approachable. So people come up to them all the time. So that to me is such an interesting experience. And it's, something kind of the VJs had also, so I can sort of a little bit relate to it. But like, I don't think we've ever really talked to like '90s reality people about the experience of having that kind of fame, and also people sort of not liking you because they think reality TV, certainly at the time, they felt it was, that was the pig feed of the '90s.
Yeah.
People hated reality TV back then. And then it's just like you're just kind of stuck there, and you have the whole rest of your life to live. I don't know.
And
I just think those are.
Eric was the top. Like Eric actually
Oh my
did.
God,
He was
yeah.
one of the only people that was able to actually parlay that into Club
Hmm.
MTV. He had his own thing, but you always
Hmm.
kind of go a step further in your interviews, which I really appreciate, where, he opens up about somebody, his manager taking money from him, of him being broke, of
Yeah,
making this decision of going down the wrong path, and all of a sudden saying like, listen, I got to get out of here. I got to
yeah,
leave. I got to go back to my family. And it was just this really, which to me is also the story of MTV, of like these lives that it changed of people who were on air, which I thought was
yeah,
just so great to hear from him. But it also changed your life. So coming from a
for sure.
personal perspective, like in your Party of One book, you talk about going to audition for this and sleeping past it, and like the fear and
Hmm.
all of these things, and you loved it so much and wanted it so much. In your experience, was it everything that you had dreamt that it could be before that first audition for MTV?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was the Wonka factory. It really was like where like pop culture was made. More than any. I mean, it was of course the most fun job. Like I had an absolute ball, of everything that I've gotten to do since then is because I showed up that day, and that's like I'm so grateful. But the thing that was the most significant was the idea, like once I got there and started doing my job and was surrounded by writers and directors and camera people and production assistants and all of these people who were also in love with culture and with MTV, like the idea that I could love what I did for a living was so, like, it's crazy to look back and think that I just never thought that that could be true.
Yeah.
It's not, my dad didn't hate his job, but he didn't love his job. It was a thing that he put a tie on and went to an office and did, to bring money home. And it just never occurred to me in St. Louis, Missouri, that I could, like, the things that I love and the way that my brain works can all be assets to me. And not that there isn't a part that's drudgery, because of course there is, but like that most of my life could be directed toward what I love and am good at and want to improve at and all that. Like, it just never occurred to me until then. And then
Yeah.
and then it was like, well, okay, well, now I just want to love what I do for the rest of my life, you know? And
Yeah.
that's, I don't think any of that would ever have occurred to me if I hadn't shown up on that day.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so interesting to see where your life has gone because of this, but that's why I think it is so important that you tell this story. And it's almost so
Yeah.
sad. I know I keep bringing up sad. I'm sorry. It's early in the morning, but
No.
it's one of those things that I wanted this show to keep going. I
Well,
wanted you
maybe.
to, like, where are you leading us down next? Like, what rabbit hole are we going down next with you? Because I'll go anywhere at this point. Like, Waiting
Well,
for Impact, you
thank you.
guys, you got to listen to Waiting for Impact. It still holds up to this day. The trying to find this band Sudden Impact and the journey that you went through trying this and all the people you got to talk to, you really do
Thank
this
you.
thing brilliantly, but I think you could do it with anything. What is next potentially?
Thanks. Oh, well, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. This honestly was, this was the MTV podcast was a long process. Not only because we got to talk to so many people, but because, even the company that I did it for got acquired, and then that
Oh
parent
yeah.
company went bankrupt, and it was, we were in good shape, but like, there was personnel changes all along the way, and we lost a couple of good people. And so things, took a bit longer. So I don't, it's now that this is out, it really just occurred to me yesterday when the final episode went out. I was like, wait, there was this whole part of my brain that was sort of spinning away on it. Like, we were doing that last episode until the very last second. And so now it's like I've got a little mental real estate freed up, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm leaving the country next week for a couple weeks, and I'm gonna refill the tank a little bit.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Italy. I've never been to Italy.
Oh, yeah, oh my God, you're gonna love it. Are you
I can't
Florence?
wait. I am going to Bologna and Venice, and then I have like 4 days that I actually don't know where I'm going to go yet. So
Perfect.
I'm
That's
open
perfect.
to ideas. Yeah.
Um, in the making of this, and was there anything left on the table? Was there any avenue that you were like, oh gosh, are we going to potentially see any other spillover episodes of interviews you collected? Because there's
I
so much
mean,
work that goes into this that I'm sure there's a lot of things that you have to kill your babies and leave on the cutting room floor.
so many babies. So many babies. So many babies. Like, truly, yeah. There's so much stuff that I would love to have gotten into, and potentially still can. There's an interview that I love that we couldn't really find a place for. With, do you know Miss Guy? Miss Guy is a DJ, like a drag queen
Drag queen,
DJ.
yeah.
She was the lead singer of a group called the Toilet Boys. That actually got some play on 120 Minutes. But Miss Guy was one of the winners of an 80s MTV contest, the Motley Cruise. It was,
Oh yeah,
remember that, in
yeah.
like 86 or 87, something like that. And yeah, that story is totally fascinating, but there's kind of nowhere for it. Those 80s contests I could drill down on.
Oh, Little Pink
Like I said, the
Houses, when
Little Pink
John Mellencamp, the
Houses.
Pink House thing, win a pink
Yeah.
house.
Which, by the way, do you know that story?
No, what's the story?
Okay, because the house that the person won, was later found to have been built on a toxic waste site. And
Yep.
so that
Yep.
was a whole thing. Yeah, there was craziness with the Van Halen Lost Weekend. Like, there's a lot of stuff to get into. Like I said, the evolution of the music and talent department, I think, is really something that's kind of interesting to get into. I could do a whole episode on Syphil and Ollie
Oh
and
my God.
Austin stories. And
You had Daria. You have the voice of Daria in this. Like, she's in the
yeah,
last episode. Like Daria
well, she's
herself.
throughout. Yeah, Daria herself makes an appearance later in the episode. But yeah, it's yeah. There's so much. There's so many avenues to go down. Like, as we were really in this last month, I was like, why didn't I say I was going to do more? I should have said more episodes than 8. But you just never know what might happen. And people. We're lucky. It's been doing quite well. So maybe we can
Yeah.
take you down some some more out of the way avenues.
Well, that's the other thing you point out is that like MTV really was like breaking ground in like even like the cartoons, like the Beavis and
Mhm.
Butthead, the Syphil and
Oh,
Ollie,
yeah.
the Aeon Flux. Like they went into
Yeah.
so many different directions, and that's why it's so weird that we wound up where we're at now because
Mhm.
of demographics and algorithms and money. But like for a
Yeah.
while, they branched out into so many interesting, weird directions that that's why it's so shocking that I feel like where we're at, because I feel like they were at the forefront of pop culture.
Well,
They made
that's
it.
that's exactly it. And Tracy Grandstaff, voice of Daria, says says something to that effect in our final episode, where there was a point at which the network stopped saying, "Here's what culture is," and started asking, what is culture? Right? Like for a certain amount of time, it was like, we're just going to give you this stuff. Like, we're going to be the curators of culture, and kids, you're going to take it. And we did take it. After a while, to create more value for shareholders, it was like, let's do safer things and like figure out what the audience wants and then try to give it to them. Like, you tell us who you are, and then we'll try to make content around that, rather than saying like, here's a whole wide world of things that you can like and people that you can be, and you can pick and choose and be a little bit of everything. It became like, you like whatever, you like
Yeah.
Cheyenne or whatever, here's Cheyenne. Or you like Room Raiders? Cool. Yeah, here's Room Raiders 4 times in a row or whatever. It
I mean,
stopped. It
the
stopped
next
like
bus. Next. Yeah.
the next bus. I mean, in its way, that was a fascinating show.
I mean, well,
And
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's the documentary I want to see, is like where these
yeah,
next contestants are now, like what their
yeah.
lives turned out to be would
Do
be
you do
insane.
you ever watch old shows like this and look people up on LinkedIn? Because I do.
See, you're actually you say LinkedIn is actually this great place. I always get this email from LinkedIn every week that's like, you appeared in 20 job searches, and I'm like, why? I never touch my
Yeah,
LinkedIn, but you're
yeah.
actually making me want to touch my LinkedIn
It's
because
because it's where people are. It's where people are.
it's the new
Yeah,
MTV. It's the new
it is the
MTV.
new MTV. Yeah, like every now and then. Okay, by the way, Studs is on demand on Pluto, which is
Is it really?
incredible. Oh yeah, 2 seasons of Studs, and like I was watching an episode, and there was a guy, and it was like, he was super handsome and like just such a 1991, rust colored giant sport coat and like jeans and sideburns, and I looked him up on LinkedIn, and he's still out here, and he's still in the business. And his daughter was Margaret in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Oh,
Like, you never know who you're gonna find who's actually still in the business. By the way, Chris Hardwick was on a 1991 episode of Studs,
of course he
and
was. Of
and
course, Chris
that
Hardwick was. That
casting person recommended him to MTV, who brought him on for a show called Trashed, which didn't last,
which
and then singled out.
Dude, I forgot. You just maybe singled out Jenny McCarthy. Like that was
Jenny
the rise of
McCarthy.
Jenny McCarthy. Like so
Yeah.
many stars were
Oh my
created.
God. Yeah. Well, I
What
didn't get
was
to
your?
talk to Duff. I wanted to
Oh
talk
my
to,
god!
I mean, I'm friendly with Duff in real life, and I feel I like, she's just so cool. I really wanted to have her in the show. That it makes me want to do more episodes,
I mean,
almost
I
more than
went down a
anything.
rabbit hole where I was like, where Kennedy is now. Kennedy's writing for like the
Oh,
Daily Mail and Fox. I was like, what?
oh no,
What
she's
is
on
going
Fox
on?
News. Yeah,
Yeah,
like my mom knows who Kennedy is
I was
because
like,
she's on
Kennedy
Fox
was
News.
doing like Met Gala coverage for Daily Mail, complaining
Really?
about celebrities, and I was like,
Oh boy,
how did we get to this point? This is so fascinating.
I
I'm going to look
know.
her up on LinkedIn. What was your
Yeah,
scariest moment? Who was your scariest moment doing live television, like TRL and all that? Like, can you bring yourself back to like the
can
scariest moment on live TV?
this is so weird, but I was never nervous. I was never scared, and I'm like a very anxious person, but I never, like, there was even before. Okay, so like after Wanna Be VJ, but before I was regularly on the network, I was working. I was like doing a pilot for what would become I Spy Video, and this is when they were still doing MTV Live before TRL, and it was like the big show out by the windows and whatever. It was 90 minutes and it was live. And one of the super higher up producers, who was 27, was like, we don't have a host for like tomorrow's show, and it's Stacey Dash and Doug Savant from Melrose Place and whatever. And he was like, can you come in and host it? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, I can't, I'm proud of that kid for saying yes, but like, I can't, if you asked me that now, I'd have a nervous breakdown. But like, for some reason at the time, it was just like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I did it. And something about live TV, the chaos of it, and the fact that there's like 8 things to be paying a little bit of attention to at any given time, suited my ADHD so perfectly that I just sort of felt like, oh, this is what I do.
Yeah.
I'm calm and comfortable here. So like, it's not to say that I was never like excited before a live show or anything, but like I was never nervous. I was never
Even
like
with the Britney
scared.
Spears, even Britney Spears is there. Nothing like
No,
no.
no, because like no, because we, we saw her from the very beginning. Like she was, she was a kid, like just before Baby One More Time came out. So like, yeah, we got to see her grow, and we got to see the boy bands grow. But we also saw them, at the
Yeah.
very beginning. So yeah, it was hard to get intimidated. But then, doing 120 minutes, I got to interview Joe Strummer, who I grew up listening to, and
Oh my
Liz
God.
Phair, who I love, and Tori Amos, who I love. And like even then, it was just like, this is just so weird. It was, the whole thing was so surreal that I somehow couldn't get nervous.
It's weird,
Yeah,
these
it's
passages
weird.
of like, this is all the soundtrack of our lives, and these video or the films of our lives, these films about ghosts in some way. And I was watching
Uh,
John Mulaney's Netflix show last night, and the Blue album is 30 years old, and I was watching,
yeah,
and I almost blacked out when he said 30 years old, but that's like everything. Like
it's
Sarah McLachlan is doing a Fumbling Towards Ecstasy tour right now. Like all of the, like
uh-huh.
Exile in Guyville, Liz Phair just did a tour for
Yes.
Exile in Guyville. And I was like, this is wild. Like it's that thing your parents always told you, is that you're going to be old one day too. And it's
Yeah.
wild. It feels like 20 years disappeared all of the sudden. And I
Yep.
remember when MTV, I remember your TRL day. I remember how amazing that was. And then you even point out like the last song on TRL, I think it was like a Neo song that I had never heard of.
Never
And
in my life.
yeah, it's like these things have just kind of been almost erased from our memories. And now we're on this other side of it where we're celebrating culture, but like
Yeah.
through this 30-year lens.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. It's I wrote a piece about this for Esquire a couple years ago, but there is like a stretch of time from around the beginning of the iTunes Music Store, but like before Spotify, where you would just click that little 99-cent thing on the iTunes Music Store, and you would sort of, you'd have that song, but it wouldn't really live anywhere. It would sort of be on your iPod, and you don't have that iPod anymore. So there's like a few years of music that's just kind of gone. It's like it's erased, and like you don't have a playlist for it on a thing that exists anymore. It's on maybe your first iPhone, but you don't have that iPhone anymore. So there's like 10 years of music that just has not left a physical trace. There's no
Yeah.
like fossil record of that Neo song, or of like Gem, or
Oh, yeah.
you know you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
She Daisy, like there's yeah, that's an odd one, but yeah, that whole thing is gone. Also, we are at that age where, like, if you remember, 80s or 90s, like PBS, they would have that. There'd be like, a salute to doo-wop, and it was the coasters and the this and the whatever, and it was like an audience of people clapping on the one and the three, and you were like, oh, this is a little embarrassing, but it's like, no, that's us, and Weezer now,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
which stinks, but whatever.
it's
That's
very interesting to go through. As we wind down here, I was thinking this is like, if I said, Dave, listen, I'm the new president of Viacom, and I'm getting rid of MTV Classic, I'm getting rid of everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you be in charge. What would you like to do with the network? How do you think? Let's just shoot for the moon. What would you do right now if you had, I mean, let's not an insane budget, but a limited budget,
Hmm.
and you had access to MTV IP. What would you do?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think it's just like, stop hiding your age, I think, is kind of the key. You know, like, they don't really do much with MTV Classic because they don't want MTV to be a brand, for anybody other than young people. Still, that is this like vestigial thing that remains, is that like MTV is a young person's brand, but it isn't. It's MTV Entertainment does Yellowstone. You know what I mean? All of our parents watch Yellowstone.
Yeah.
So, and it's like the freaking Moon Man and Sting show up at the beginning of every episode. It's like, what are we doing? I feel like MTV Classic is a brand that's just like ripe for the taking. Like, it's the name is there, the word classic is in it. We sort of know what to expect, but we turn it on and it feels like it's just a bunch of stuff on shuffle. It's
Yeah,
somebody's
yeah.
hard drive just on shuffle. I feel like, you can cater to people in their 40s and 50s now and not have it be embarrassing. There is a way to, have a news department and be the place where you go when Steve Albini dies. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah.
You could turn on MTV Classic and be like, there we're gonna have a little on-air vigil, and it's not, as corny or embarrassing to be in your 40s and 50s and have this thing on. I just think it's like acknowledge your age and serve an underserved demographic. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
stop trying to
Well,
chase the kids, because the kids, they've moved on to, they're on some new thing that I don't even know what it is.
they're on
So
the talk of tick or whatever the
whatever it
TikTok. And
is, I'm
well,
so
Dave,
afraid
you're
of
you're
that.
in you're in luck because I am the president of Viacom now, so I
Oh my
am giving
gosh!
you the Yeah, yeah.
Wow!
This was a big interview actually, just to see if you were the person for the job, and I think you really are.
Oh
Uh,
wow! Thank you so
congrats.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you so
it's
much. But yeah, here's the thing. Like, that is a brand that you could do. You could like take on the road. There are these festivals, of like, there's Hootie Fest, in Cancun, that makes money. Like, there are ways that you could like use the MTV brand and create fun experiences for people in their 30s, 40s, 50s who have a bit of money and want to relive spring break or something. It doesn't have to be embarrassing. It can just be like, a fun music festival. But there's ways that you can.
oh,
There are things you can do with the brand, I guess
it's
is what
weird
I'd
to
say.
even outgrow music festivals. Like Coachella started off one way, and now we have a split off from Coachella that's over in
Hmm.
Pasadena now, where it's like the alternative bands that Coachella used to champion. They've moved
Hmm.
on, and now we have this
Yep.
split off. And I'm like, this is wild. Like, this is
It's
truly
wild.
interesting because they do chase, the almighty dollar. But MTV will always be more than a Target T-shirt for me and a lot of us out there listening. Has there
Yeah.
anybody? When these 8 episodes release, has there anybody that's reached out to you that has surprised you or delighted you?
I did yesterday hear from Shane Nickerson. Like, I've been, emailing everyone who's involved just to let them know what's up. But Shane Nickerson is the executive producer of Ridiculousness, which is on 168
Yep.
times this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
And I was really pleased to hear from him, because I it is crazy how much they show that show, but it's like that is what the network has chosen to be, and it's not his fault. It's not Rob Dyrdek's fault. It's like,
No.
this is just what makes financial sense for the network to be doing right now. And so I am, I guess, glad that I threaded that needle in a way that was okay to him, because
You did.
I don't blame these people at all. It is weird that a credit card company started this incredible brand that changed so many people's lives, and now the face of it is like a cool skateboarder who's trying to sell skateboards. Like, there's something about like an uncool company doing an incredibly cool thing, and then it ends with an incredibly cool guy doing sort of a,
Yeah.
not super cool thing.
Um,
But it's not his fault.
did,
So
did I catch a Vanderpump Rules reference at some point in this? Did you
did
mention?
you?
I did you mention it at one of the earlier episodes? Like, did you?
Maybe.
I think I was listening to one of the first episodes on the plane, and you dropped a Vanderpump Rules reference, and I was like, "Do you watch Vanderpump Rules?"
I've tried. I can't do it. It makes me sad. I don't like watching people be mean to each other. It makes me sad.
It's
I
because you live near Jackson, Brittany. It's too close to
It's
home for
because
you.
I'm connected. But also, when I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe around the time Waiting for Impact came out, I was on Sheena's podcast, and I
Shenanigans,
immediately was
yeah.
like, "Oh, I really like her shenanigans," and she's great. I really like her. And so when like the Scandoval happened and whatever, I was like, okay, I got caught up on that, and then I was like, well, I should go back to the beginning, and I started watching from the Vertical Blinds years, and everyone was so mean to Sheena. I was like, I can't watch this. I
Yeah,
like her, and
yeah.
I don't like watching people be, because they're real mean. They're real mean to each other.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
they make good
yeah,
livings doing it.
yeah, I know. And like the Valley, same thing. It's like, I should love it because they're going to all the places that I go, and it's all like literally happening. Like, it's some of it's like
Oh,
filmed on my block,
Dave, Jackson,
and
Brittany don't live together anymore.
I
They're
know.
they're
I know.
I mean, they're in 2 separate modern day farmhouses now. Like, it's
Yeah,
awful.
yeah.
Yeah,
All of those houses look exactly the same, and
I know.
it's so, but it's an improvement on what like also happens in my neighborhood, where it's like these gorgeous old houses get torn down, and then it's these like Calabasas Kardashian monstrosities that go to the end of the lot, and it's like there's a Cybertruck outside of one of those on the end of my block. It's bad things are happening in Valley Village. I'm
Um,
worried.
finally, what are you watching right now that you are loving, and what are you listening to right now that you're loving?
I'm glad you brought up the John Mulaney live show because I think it is so good.
Yeah, me
I
too.
think
I've watched
I didn't
every
see
episode.
the last night's yet, but I think I love the chaos of it. He's obviously so funny, and yeah, I just like that it's like offbeat and weird. It feels like kind of
MTV
vintage
in a
80s
sense.
90s cable TV. Like
Well, it
yeah, it
says
feels like
it.
Night Flight or whatever.
Oh my God, Night Flight. He said like he reached out to David Lynch to be on the show, and David Lynch
Hmm.
sent this email back of like, I'm working right now. I've got my eye on the donut and I can't take my eye off it. And I think David Lynch
Hmm.
was even like, what is this? But it is very Lynchian in a lot of ways, the John Mulaney
It
show, in
is.
the best possible way. I
Yeah.
just think
I don't ever
it
want it to
reminds me.
end.
Yeah, it's like when people used to talk about early Letterman, I'm like, this is what that's at. This is what this is. I
Yes.
wish we could keep going because it's just weirdly controlled chaos that is excellent. What are you listening to?
Yeah. I love the new Real Estate album.
Oh,
I don't know if you
yes.
know them. Oh my God, I
Yes, of
love them so
course.
much. It is jangly in a way that like is the sound of my soul inside my body. I love them. I just got the new Amen Dunes album on vinyl, and it's crazy, but I think I like it.
Yeah.
And then can I tell you what I'm really listening to right now
Yes.
is I have found an account on Spotify that recreates old in-store Gap playlists from the 90s. And the Gap was a big summer and holiday job for me in the early 90s when I was in college. And it's so it's like some of the ones that I kind of remember from working there, but then the rest of the ones from like 96, 97, 98 are just like they're such good mixes. And you know that it was a human being who was involved in the creation of them, who was trying to create a vibe, and they're like diverse, and they're just cool.
Yeah.
It's so pre-algorithmic that it makes me really happy.
I love
I,
that.
as a matter of fact, kind of want to do a podcast series about Gap in-store playlists,
Oh
but
my
we'll see.
God. I'll sign up
We'll
for
see what
anything that you
happens.
do. Also, he
Thank
brought
you.
up Real Estate. I want to recommend Real Estate's first album, Days. It's one of my favorite
Yes,
albums of all time. It's like
me
I never go to
too.
the beach, but it's always the album that I always picture coming back from the beach from because it just
Yeah.
reminds me of summer and like I don't know, like a gin and tonic and something like I don't know. There's something so beautiful about that album. So Real Estate, go check that out. But also
Hmm.
go check this podcast out. And I know it probably doesn't need it, but what do we do to anybody that comes on? We subscribe to the podcast, Spotify
Please.
and Apple Music. We also, sorry, Apple Podcasts. We also rate it 5 stars. We rate it 5 stars because
Please.
that helps with placement. And we want to be able to have people listen to this. It's a 8 short, tight episodes that are going to take you through the history of this. You're going to learn so much. You're going to be wistful in ways that you can't even imagine, and you are going to be left wanting for more. Dave, I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you. Like you're truly a hero
Thank
of
you.
mine. So thank you for
And
coming
thank
on.
you.
And
And thank you.
yeah, thank
Like
you.
all that I aspire to do with things like this is to create a feeling of wistfulness. So you've made me
Yeah,
so happy by
you
choosing that
do.
exact word. That is
Yeah, I mean,
exactly what I am hoping
and that's
to elicit from
throughout
people.
all your work. Go support him. Party of One is a
Thank you.
great memoir. The story about the Indigo Girls sticks with me to this day.
Oh,
And
thank
of
you.
course, Waiting for Impact. After you finish the MTV show, go listen to Waiting for Impact. Gonna blow you away
Thank
as
you.
well. Dave Holmes, we will follow you until the
Brian
ends of
Bailey,
the earth. Thanks, man.
thank you so much. Thank you. Oh my God. Truly thank you.